my little maniacs. This is your host, the Maniacs Gaming, coming back at you with another video. In today's video, we're going to be discussing the Buccaneers win over the Detroit Lions in their home stadium. Let's get it. So the Bucs won a 20-16 showdown with the Lions that included a scoreless fourth quarter. With the Lions, they had a lot of drives in the red zone, I'll be honest, but the defense for the Tampa Bay managed to clamp down on the Lions and hold them scoreless in a lot of those drives. But we'll look at the stats and go into everything and my thought process over the game. So Baker Mayfield, 12 for 19. He didn't throw the ball a whole lot, but when he's effective enough to get 189 yards and a touchdown, I'm not going to complain too much. Obviously, there were a couple throws he could have made that were just either not great throws on his part or he just didn't have the time to throw, which we'll get into more later. Obviously, he did have the one pick, which was just a bad interception. It was a bad interception. Why he decided to throw it, I don't know, but it was a bad pick. And then sacks, he did take, unfortunately, 5 sacks, 39 yards. Again, we'll get more into that later. And then a QBR of 51.1, not great. And then a rating of 90.9, decent. But the biggest issue here was the run game. We could not get that run game going. As you can see down below, Baker Mayfield was our leading rusher with 5 for 34, 6.8 a carry, 1 touchdown, and a lawn of 12 yards, which was right before his rushing touchdown, which was an 11-yard beauty. Just saying. And then Bucky Irvin, 7 for 22, 3.1. His longest was 6 yards. And then Rachaad White, 10 for 18, 1.8 a carry. Bucky and Rachaad just were not seeing the holes regardless of the content of the attempts that we gave them. They just could not get through. That a lot of it just came down to O-line play, which we'll get to in a moment. So K-Dot had 1 for -4 because it was just a backwards pass from Baker that he was just getting rid of just to try to get something to happen there. Receiving-wise, we're not really spreading the ball out a whole lot, but when Godwin's having a performance like this, 7 for 117 yards on 8 targets with a touchdown, I can't really blame Baker too much for not giving it to other people. And then 3 receptions, 42 yards for Mike, 1 for 21 for McMillan, and then 1 for 5 for Rachaad. Again, Baker just really wasn't looking anywhere else other than K-Dot, which was in the red zone for whatever reason. And then fumbles, we did have 2 fumbles from Baker, which this is because the O-line was a little bit rough because Luka Decky unfortunately did not participate due to a concussion. So Skule had stepped in at right tackle, and he had plays that were pretty good. He had plays that were not so good. He did let Aiden Hutchinson come in for basically 5 sacks. Baker did have 2 fumbles, one of which he recovered, and the other one that Skule recovered. So at least both fumbles were recovered and didn't come back to bite us. Now, defensive-wise, Jordan Whitehead have a frickin' day. Now, we were unable to get to Goff at all as a team, but Jordan Whitehead had an absolute day out there. 11 total tackles, 8 solo, 1 tackle for loss, and a pass defended, as well as Servaka Dennis, that was also our leading tackler with 11, 6 solo. Just overall, we were really well as a tackling team. We were able to get behind the line a few times here. So overall, I'm not going to complain too much about how the defense performed. They had their backs put in a lot of bad situations, 87 tackles as a team. Vita Vea, who did unfortunately get hurt in the third quarter, I believe it was. So he did miss most of the game. Very unfortunate, but it was an MCL sprain, so he stayed a day. If he's not back next week, I expect him back week 4. Now, the turning points of this game were the fact that Tampa got not 1, but 2 interceptions. 1 by Eisen, and then 1 by McCollum, who had just cleared a concussion protocol. So, absolute amazing that he was able to make it. He intercepted Goff on the first play of the game, which allowed us to really set the tempo early and get up early 6-0. And Eisen had basically a game-sealing pick at the end there. And then shout out Chase for going 2 for 2 on his field goals and 2 for 2 on the extra points. Again, it's nice to have a kicker. And then Camarda had himself a day with 5 punts for 230 yards. Good job. And then we'll go over to the Lions side. So Jared Goff had 55 attempts for 34 yards, 307 yards on average, and a 5.6 on average throw. And then Jack Fox, who had a trick punt for 17 yards. And then Goff did have 2 interceptions, QBR 36.4, and a rating of 61.7. Goff just, he looked off this game. I don't know if it was rust. I don't know if it was the Bucs pass rush or what it was, but he just could not get anything going. Like, I don't understand what it was, but he just didn't seem like himself. He wasn't able to, like, he was missing some throws there that he shouldn't have been missing. He was making some bad interceptions. It was just, he seemed off his game. I don't know if he's playing through an injury or what it is, but he needs to get his rust figured out. And then rushing yards for Detroit. Jahmyr Gibbs led the way with 13 for 84. No touchdowns, along to 24. David Montgomery, who we kept rather in check, 11 for 35, 3.2 a carry, the 1 touchdown, which was from the 1, I believe. And then Jameson Williams, 1 for 15. Goff, 2 for 5. Again, we kept the run game relatively in check, except for Gibbs, who was able to break off a lawn of 24. So I'm not going to complain too much about the run defense, honestly. And then receiving-wise, we struggled a little bit. But overall, like, I don't think we did too bad with this, considering that Amon-Ra had 11 for 119. We knew he was going to have a big game. But longest was of 20 yards, so I'm not going to complain too much. 10.8 on average. And then Jameson had 5 for 79, 15.8, but it is carried by a lawn of 50 yards, which he just got behind Jamel Dean. Dean just burnt the defense. And then 4 for 35 for Montgomery, 3 for 27 for Khalif, 7 for 22 for Gibbs. And then Vaki had the reception on the fake punt. Laporta 2 for 13, Patrick 2 for 12, and then Kennedy, who was targeted but did not catch anything. And then there's no fumbles. And then defensive-wise, this is where everything went kind of crazy. So the leading tackler for Detroit was Brian Branch and Jack Campbell. Brian Branch also had 2 passes defended. And I believe he was the one that had the pick. I can check down below. But the real menace here on the defense was Aiden Hutchinson, who came in for 4.5 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. He just had an absolute day in Detroit. Again, just matched up against that right tackle in Skule, who had never really played in the game before. So he's absolutely just able to make that mismatch in his favor. And Brian Branch did have the 1 interception. So can't complain too much about Brian Branch's production for the Detroit if you're a Detroit fan. And then kick returns, Kennedy, 3 for 80, 1, lawn of 31. Khalif, 3 for 32 on the punts. And then Jake Bates, 3 for 3 on the field goals, 1 for 1 on the extra point. He showed up to work at least. And then punting, they only punted twice overall because they went for it on a couple 4th downs. But overall, I think this is a really good game for both sides, honestly. I think both sides did extremely well. Obviously, this came down to whose defense was more stingy, and it turned out to be the Bucs' defense more stingy, as their defense was put with their back to the wall several times and were able to come up clutch to either prevent Detroit from getting field goals or force Detroit to take field goals instead of settling for touchdowns or going for it on 4th down. So overall, I think this is a really good game. The Bucs are going to have the Broncos next week and the Lions. I'm not actually sure, but I can check because up here. Who do the Lions play next week? Where are they? Oh, the Lions have Arizona. So I'm not too worried if I'm the Lions unless you lose that game against Arizona, which Arizona has looked good. But until then, I'm not too worried about it. Obviously, if you're Detroit, wait until that game. But anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys like these videos? Do you want to see more of them? Let me know what you guys think. And if there's anything else you guys would like me to talk about. Overall, MVP for the Bucs, I would honestly give it to Godwin, just for his overall great performance on the offensive side. Defensive side, I'd probably give it to defensively, probably Whitehead. He had a lot of really good plays. Detroit offensive, Jahmyr Gibbs, just because he was able to help them control the pace. And then defensive wise, it's got to be Aiden Hutchinson, just because of the 4.5 sacks. Like, that was just impressive. But anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think down below. Make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, all that fun stuff. Greatly appreciate you. But anyway, guys, that is going to do it for me today. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on that noti bell. On the road to 2,000 subscribers, trying to hit that by the end of the year, trying to hit 16 hundo by the end of the month. Let's get it, fam, and as always, I will see all you guys later. Stay crazy, fam.